Okay. Well, we will, because I know that this has been such a privilege again, but I will, since everything is about to be wrapped up, I just wanted to see if there's anything else you'd like to add until next time. I'm sure we'll meet again. And is there anything else we can add, ladies, to your experiences with Esther over the year too? I mean, just
They don't know half of it.
Very few interesting things. Now I know where I get my.
yeah, sure.
Jackie and I would
know,
always say, we
personalities.
never tell our kids what we did.
Well, we say
Jackie
that
and I
too.
always said that. We just
Well, I
don't
had a
tell our-
boyfriend once upon a time that wanted to give me a ride on a motorcycle, and she wouldn't let me go. And then I started hearing about all the rest of it.
Seriously?
Poochie was Poochie. It was only him and Butch Profrock, and Butch Profrock was married. And, you know, we would go up to his house, Dad and I. And then I'd ride with Butch, because June wouldn't get on the bike. I would.
Well, what would you like future generations to remember about this part of Wheatfield? The things that you would like people to carry on, the things that you learned essentially here.
Just the country itself. Now Ann lives in the country, and it's just the place where you can be yourself. She lives in Napa, but they like it in Napa. Well, and you work yet.
So this was all rural back when you were growing up, like farms and.
But everybody's related to everybody, and everybody knows everybody, and you probably couldn't get away with too much without somebody's.
My mother would tell me, what will the neighbors say? Always.
And the neighbors
Always.
cared, yeah, and they kept an eye out for you.
That's what one of the ladies I spoke to, she said this was back at a time when if you did something, the lady at the next house over would call your mother, who she may not have even met before, and tell her that so and so is doing X, and or that this is also the era of wait till your father gets home, essentially, and that would be implications
We needed
there.
social media because it got out anyway.
And this is a picture of my grandmother. This is by age. And somebody wrote on the back of it, not me. And it was taken in 1945. That's why I was interested when my grandmother died.
1953, I think it said.
Okay.
1953.
Okay,
so
because
she
here
died
it
after
said
the
she
war.
was 82.
Oh, okay.
So 9 years later, she was 91 then when she died.
Wow, and that's unusual.
See,
back
and
then.
that's why I say I think I got my grandmother's longevity, because my mother passed away at what,
93.
65?
Which was
My
when I
father
moved out.
died at 60-something.
No, I think
Yeah.
he was in his 50s.
My father? No, he was in his 60s, I think. Yeah. But this is the Williams family.
Oh my goodness.
And I said to Ann, I would like to know where they originally came from.
Williams. And I have all those papers, but I saved all the historical stuff tracking that you gave me, and I was gonna bring it with me, and I left it at home.
Yeah, I've got a lot of it.
Yeah, I happen to be vice president of Das Haus, and the family-related things I share with them for their genealogical research. And so, there's a man named Doug Williams, who
He's
he's
a
gonna
relative.
be, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to put him in touch with Richard Williams.
See, and he would know how
so-
the Williams side came on.
And lately I was talking to June Stencil, and getting information from her, and I got some great stories from her. She said that
She was a
was
Williams.
talking about, yeah, exactly. She was her father was Arthur Williams,
Yeah.
upon whose property the Summit Mall
We
would
would
be built.
visit
really?
them. We would visit them. And she married Mike Stencil, who was the same age as Winston Moeller and Gordy and me, because Mike was Myron. His real name is Myron. And he grew up right here on Ward Road.
The greatest generation.
Well, no, they were older than us.
Even, yeah, or
They
even
were older.
silent generation. Even,
So
yeah.
obviously, like, late the 1800s, somebody came here, and there must have been families, and then one family told another family to come, so.
Yes.
1843, right? That
Yeah.
whole immigration from Germany.
And it was skill-based as well, because if you're missing a particular person who was dealing in a trade, whether that was pottery or smithing or metalwork or something like that, you might say, hey, we're missing a metalworker, or missing a potter. That's where the Mayvalts came in. Mr. Mayvalt, Carl Mayvalt, he came over from Germany in the slightly later 1840s to be the potterer, because you needed people to put things together like that, and that becomes one of Burkhalt's most famous exports, are Mayvalt
Was a
potters. Yeah, exactly. And he lost 2 sons in the Civil War, and there were memorial wreaths he made, these tender, beautiful objects, and we have one of them at the museum over there today for
And we
people to see.
think my sister Dorothy had some in Arizona or Williamsville.
Yeah, we're interested in the
And
other one too.
If anything, Patricia's, pardon me, if anything, Patricia's got them. And I keep forgetting to email her and
Oh,
ask
by all
her.
means, yeah. We were able to acquire the one and bring it back from the Pacific Northwest from the owner up in there. Eventually migrated out that way. The wreath, the first wreath.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for the other one, and however it can come back.
So that when it was settled here, was everybody related to one another, or from a certain section
In some,
Germany?
you know, as you know, yeah. I mean, that in some form or other, yeah. If they came over on certain waves of immigration, it's like tracing people related to the Mayflower, essentially. You know, that kind of experience.
Do you still have those books for sale?
Yes, we do.
You should get those books.
And we've got a couple of newer ones.
They're really
Is it
good.
at the Das House?
Yeah. Would I be able to scan those, the other family
I
photos
thought you
too?
did.
Not these ones, no. These
Oh.
ones are new to me, and
You know,
It's
this
got a
doesn't
list of
really
all
have,
ships
that has
and
my
Oh, really?
mother on it.
dates and
But
the
these
names
are all
of
people
everybody
from
who goes on the ships.
Walkersville.
oh, okay.
Because this
Oh,
woman,
all right.
Antilli,
At Das House?
that's Antilli. This woman is this woman.
I've been there. Yeah, it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
So when is it open?
I got them available here too, along with my card. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's her. And these are the Williams family. But Philip Williams, now
Oh, open Sundays.
he and
Maybe
his
we'll take
wife
you on it.
adopted
Yeah.
Does she have?
2 girls. One of them was Isabel Williams, who married Milo Barber on Moyer Road.
okay, yes, I remember the name.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Milo is also deceased.
And that has.
And then the
website.
other daughter
Has a lot of
married,
information.
Irene, married Henry Broker from Shawnee.
Girls track this to
Mhm.
Germany.
And Henry Broker's,
It is?
Henry and Irene Broker's son, Don,
Never been.
Donald Broker, and I were the same age, as well as his wife, Jane Coyton, from Coyton's Farm.
Yeah, right over there for.
And then
yeah.
their son,
Shawnee Road.
Glenn,
That was just there.
went to school with Nancy, but Glenn is now deceased as well.
Mhm.
Uh,
Right. Okay. Right.
But
yeah.
yes, I mean, I could trace Philip's family. And Molly from Walkersville, I think her name was Schaff? No, I'm not sure now. I got, one of them was a Gombert. She was a Holland. This last lady was a Holland.
Right.
Whose relation to Martha Dietrich, Marty Held, who comes to your meetings.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Long way here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We know Marty.
Eugene
She's from our
Kamen.
church.
He
Oh,
was
yeah.
a patient at my dental office.
Really?
Yeah,
right.
Eugene Kamen.
He wrote all the books.
He's
He
the
did?
guy- yeah.
He's the one that wrote the
He's
Yeah.
the historian emeritus, and he was a town historian at one point
he
for a
still
little while.
living?
Yeah. No,
No.
he passed away in
Long time ago.
2004, 6, 5,
Oh,
somewhere in there.
yeah.
He did a nice lecture also. You did lectures, of course, and you did one at the the Niagara Falls Public Library which is available on their YouTube page, and they transliterated the video onto digital, and they posted that, and so you can see at least one example of how he used to lecture. He had a somewhat gentle, little slightly nasally voice, and he very, very straightforward. And when he talks about the ancestors, he's talking quite literally from their point of view, straight, and just tender and just a different world comes from that mouth when he's speaking about them, and it's great to hear the whole lecture about even just the beginnings of that different world, the antebellum era of Wheatfield, basically.
What's your website or your YouTube page?
The YouTube page is under my name, which is on the business card,
Okay.
and I can give out a couple more of those.
Yeah, I'd like one of those too.
And on the Facebook, it's Wheatfield, New York, Our History. So the backs of these cards have instructions
Yeah, I
that I
follow
added
your
to the back. there.
Facebook group, so
Yeah.
I'll look for your YouTube page.
I'll give you another
And
one of these.
Norma Stolzenberg and I went to Eugene Cannon's when he went to the NCCC and did the Low German Plattdeutsch.
Yeah, he would do lectures there too. Yes.
And we took the class. And I had all the paperwork, and
I have it.
think you have it.
I
Ann.
do, yeah.
And I looked for that. I thought I had it because that was so unique. I wanted to show it to Annette.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I look for the book, I'll look for that too,
Okay.
and the stuff about Albertine.
Yeah, I just can't imagine where they were from. Yet I remember somebody saying, oh yeah, they were relation to the Williams department store in Lockport,
Yeah,
which was a high class.
That's use my Yahoo email there instead. It's Higner, my
Oh.
last name, Dingo as in the dog. Higner
Okay.
Dingo at yahoo.com,
Okay.
and my cell phone number.
Okay,
So just
because
use that in the future.
this is what I
It's easier.
used. Higner H.
Yeah, I have
Or
to
Justin
I have
H.
to access my have to better access my Wheatfield town hall email better. I'm
Okay.
having issues with it at the moment, so just use my other email for
Okay.
everything else. And
I got
one thing that has actually come up before we leave, one thing that's actually come up is that or down, if you will, up down, is the old 1940s Department of Public Works culvert, the Ward Road Bridge or culvert that's now been demolished and removed from Sawyer's Creek, and a new, much longer, larger one is actually is going in its place right now as we speak. It's like 3 times the size of the old one, and by the looks of it, it looks to be a culvert or a bridge large enough to include a left-hand turning
Oh, I
lane
would
and other
hope so.
features that's been missing there for a while. And also probably some kind of arrangement for the Solidays or the old Janik Steakhouse building, which has always been tough to get in and out of right there. But the most interesting thing about that site, I tend to, like you and Poochie, I used to, and I do, crawl around in different places where I might not, where I shouldn't necessarily be. But what a wonderful opportunity, since all this was dug out. I not only took pictures of the old culvert anyways, the old state seal right on the side.
Oh, really?
Department of Public Works, which came before the Department of Transportation era. This is when Public Works was a thing. And I went down into the ditch area and photographed it from the other side as well. What was revealed when the 1940s concrete was removed were all these hand-laid Medina sandstone blocks that were arranged like this, like a kind of cordwood sort of thing, and locked together and mortared together from the previous bridge that had been there before, which
my
might have
gosh.
been the bridge that you were near when you were little. And,
No, that was the bridge.
Yeah,
same-
No.
Same spot.
Same spot.
Same
so it's
spot,
different.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
There was a different bridge there before the 1948 or so culvert was put in.
Really?
Yeah, because the one that just came out dated from the 40s, I'm told. That's the one that was just taken out, that everyone knows about, that they've been driving over for years and years on. But presumably there was another bridge at some point before that time I wouldn't expect you to remember exactly
You might have
which
got a
bridge.
good look at it
But,
if you were in the ditch.
but apparently whatever was there before, going back to at least the mid-1800s, the previous bridge sat or was supported by these footer stones that were locked together, and I managed to get up close to them on the other side, carefully scaling down and taking some film and photo of that. And these stones will, of course, never be seen again once they're
Right.
sealed up. And I was just driving by on the way today to meet you all, and the workers are just covering it up. And now they're just covering it up to bury the new culvert going into the new form. And I thought, thank God, this is what makes my job so good, honestly, with the town, and is to be able to see these things while they're exposed today, because then
'Cause when would
they're
that have
covered
been
over, and you
built?
won't see them again. Yeah.
So that would have been like
Who knows?
probably done in the 1800s, maybe?
Mid to late 1800s, these stones were placed on either side, or at least on the one side. I couldn't quite tell on the other side of it, my side, the north side of Ward Road, as they dug out the old culvert, whether or not those same sorts of stones were placed over there. But at least on the south side, there was just enough of them left from that earlier era. I mean, a bunch must have come out in the 1940s when they put in the older culvert. But there was still just enough visible, disheveled as they were, just enough visible and stacked yet, held together by that old mortar, to think of, wow.
That they lasted the construction
they lasted
from
that
then.
long.
They made
And it was probably before cars, so it was
yes.
just for horses.
When
and that's how
horses
you
and
would
the
go from-
carts and everything were still,
Yeah.
I mean, there were
Horses
horses and carts, of course, when the previous culvert from the 40s. I mean, people were still, there were still horses and carts going over that bridge, at least early on, when farmers would take their produce
Well,
down
we-
to go to the farmers markets that
We
through there.
came here in 1935, and my father at that time, he was 11 years older than my mother. He was old by that time. And he was driving a Willis Knight, if you know what car that was. It was square, and it had a tire on the back of it, I remember. And I would crawl in that back seat and kind of look out. And then when Dorothy got a job at Buffalo Bolt, is when she bought, Howard Noel, his name was, from North Tonawanda, she bought his old 39 Chevy. And so that was when our family got a different car.
That was the modern car.
It was a modern car.
Wow, yeah. I've got
Yeah.
a book on 1930s cars. I kind of
And
perused.
I had written this for you, the Green Lantern.
Ah,
And that is now the Orange Tree Inn.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
but
yep.
that was
Went
one
back
of the
in.
names, and that was like 1940, 1950.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
that was known as kind of, we thought it was like a house of ill repute.
Mhm.
We
Well,
did.
actually, the Green Lantern,
Yeah, and really, I'm serious.
There's-
No, sure.
there's a book or a movie, The Green Lantern. It is
Before it became
Dillard's
Dillard's
cute.
too, it was Dillard's.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing I wrote here is Crystal Bar. You get a lot of things on
Yes,
Facebook.
yes, indeed.
And when
Yes,
we were
indeed.
working at Wurlitzer, that was everybody's place. Now, I graduated in 49, so this would have been like 1950,
Mhm.
when everybody hung out at the Crystal Bar. That was owned by a guy from Martinsville, Bill Peters.
Mhm.
And Ralph Snell was a postman in North Tonawanda. And on weekends, he had a band there, and they would dance. They had a dance floor, so, and I don't know that I ever danced there, but it was known for their dancing in Ralphie Snell. And the girls from Wurlitzer, we'd have Christmas parties over there, not just the girls, everybody from Wurlitzer would go over.
Yeah, I recall when I initially became a historian, I was going through the assessment records. It was wonderful going through those because we've got pictures of different places, including the Crystal Bar, even as far back as the 50s. And and you are absolutely right about it being that popular, because,
was.
and especially because apparently the guys from the Wurlitzer would go there presumably for their lunch breaks,
Yeah.
And it was
Martini
afternoon sun.
lunch.
It was afternoon sun when this photo was taken of it, just randomly, because Willis Retzlaff was the assessor yet back then, and this one random photo saw three guys marching abreast to each other in full stride, halfway across the street between coming up at a beeline direct from Wurlitzer at a diagonal right to the Crystal Bar. You could trace their line behind the photographer to the factory, and these guys, three dudes, were coming right to the bar at that moment when Willis snapped the photo.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day.
And there was also a bar at the corner of Erie Avenue where Tim Horton is, Erie Avenue in the
Right.
boulevard, and that was
Oh.
Morganti's.
Oh, so people have mentioned that.
And
Yeah.
yes, and Ruth Zimmerman's father owned that.
Oh, wow.
And Ruth Zimmerman ended up joining our church. And she is the lady, redhead, she kind of reddish hair, who taught me how to make the potato leek soup for our candy
Oh, my
cane
goodness.
fair. And she was
Oh.
old then, and so then I became the woman that did the chowder, or the potato leek soup at St. Mark Church. And now they're having a candy cane fair again in November, when I
Oh,
asked you
neat.
about that.
Yeah, that site was where Dickie's Donuts would be
Mm-hmm.
later on, and that's where the Tim Hortons would
Yes.
be. I
yes.
love Dickie's Donuts, the
And
chocolate
everybody
donuts,
went
yeah.
there for fish fries. They had the best fish fries.
And that and the
And
building,
coleslaw.
and the building you're talking about sat where Dickie's would be built, and then later Tim. So this is going further back in that area, right?
Well, and then my nephew, Mark, their first cousin, Mark Berube, heads up the Wurlitzer maintenance and all this stuff at Wurlitzer. And he took a lot of the trees that they cut down there.
Mm.
If you've ever been in the Wurlitzer
Yeah,
banquet rooms,
right.
they have the bar that has all the
Oh.
trees. Didn't Mark
Wow.
tell us that
Huh.
they cut the trees down, and then it was Mark's idea to take those trees and make the bar?
When
You
they
know,
when they just cleared the land recently for
Yeah, and
in
it's a
front of it
shame.
for the storage facilities
How
and all that
sad,
right there.
how
Okay.
sad.
Oh, I know. I was just there to document a lot of that too, and of course behind all that was Melody Fair, which was there
And
for
that's
many
what
many
opened
years.
in 1956, when we had our centennial.
Oh,
That my boss was in charge of, like Lou Fisher was the owner, and he would be in our office all the time. And Mr. Palmer, I called him Mr. Palmer all the time, we set up for all the shows, and the Melody Fair was one of the opening things at that time. And, you know, it's like, oh my God, that was such a good job.
Yeah.
So that answers that might answer a very important critical question: was how did Melody Fair begin?
It
And
began with Wurlitzer's centennial. That's when it first opened. Liberace would be there.
wow. So this was something to help celebrate that centennial, and it just continued from there and grew and built, and
We had a
people
lot of
kept coming
shows.
until the early 2000s through the Majestic Theater period and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did have the books, but I think I turned them all over to Mark,
No?
because Mark is so instrumental
Wow.
over there.
Now that's amazing too, because as a side note, the We Feel Family Picnic we have today is an outgrowth of our country's bicentennial
Oh, really?
celebrations we had in Oppenheim and other places, and that went off so well that they decided to continue the We Feel Family Picnic a few years later by reestablishing it as its own thing at Fairmount Park, and the rest is history.
And Sharon Herman Muir, who lives on Moyer Road. I'm going to the Worth reunion Saturday. I keep getting invited just because I was Lois's good friend. And Sharon said to me, I'm sure it was Sharon that said to me, I've got pictures to give you of the church, the old church, and the previous church. So we'll be at the Fairmount Park by the flagpole. That's where the
For the reunion.
shelter is Saturday, yeah.
You know, I have to tell you, I've come across a couple of other remnants of the Wurlitzers, the the lampposts on the two avenues that used to point out, shaped like a V, would come out from the front of the factory, right? The Wurlitzer had two streets that came out in a V
Yeah.
shape
Mhm.
away from
Yeah.
it. The lampposts were eventually went to different places. Apparently, the SPCA on Lockport Road actually has 4 of them in their
Get
parking lot.
out!
I went up to them and I'm like, they're the same ones. Because I looked them over. They had the grainy, the concrete grainy feature to them. They have different tops on them. They're just rough things on the top, but the same lampposts were apparently salvaged, I guess, in the 70s or something when that building was built, and they brought over and reinstalled. And finally, where the Shrine of the Palatine Fathers is, the Catholic thing, the one-room schoolhouse that's still there. At the end of that driveway, there's one other Wurlitzer outdoor lamppost that's out by the road there with their own lamp. It's a different lamppost on different light on top. But one of the old Wurlitzer posts was down there. And when I went through the forest area that they cut the trees down to put down a store, the one where the one avenue used to pass through, which was still a clearing through the woods there, toward the end and on the left, there were 2 of those outdoor lampposts stacked on top of each other like this on the side, and one original post still standing there, not lighting anything anymore. And the concrete was gone, I guess, but that one post was still standing there until all that was wiped out with the storage shelters. And I did take pictures and film of that, just so you know, so I can share this with you.
Yeah, and getting back to Wurlitzer too,
Right.
Farney Wurlitzer
Right.
would walk around the office,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a place on Niagara on the lake, so he'd come in from the office, and I don't know if he had a driver or what. I think he did, and he would bring gladiolas, and every day somebody else would get the gladiolas to take home.
Oh.
Yeah, Alice Matthias, his secretary, would make sure that somebody different got these flowers all the time. He'd come by my office if I had the light on in Mr. Palmer's office. Oh, is AD out of town? Yes, he is, Mr. Wurlitzer. Well, then perhaps you'd like to turn the lights out.
Conserving energy back then.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're right, yes.
And he was such a gentleman. He was such a nice man.
Wow.
Yeah, but he told you, turn the lights out if he's not here.
Got a random question. Do you remember places like the Ted Raw
Sure,
nightclub?
sure.
Tell us what that was like, because, Willie Mays was there at one point,
Oh,
and
really?
Marilyn Monroe was there secretly.
Oh.
And it was a great, because it was like a tavern on the green kind of place.
That
right?
was a very classy place. I
Right.
remember it because my sister Dorothy was 10 years older. And I remember she said she had been there. And we did look, I don't know how old I was, drove down there. They had a dance floor that went over the water.
Oh, literally over, not just on the edge, over.
It's like lumberjacks
Oh
kind
my
of built
gosh.
over the water, I think. But that's what I recall. But I shouldn't say wicked place. The other one was, what's up the street from there, the one-man band, and the black guy that played with his feet.
Mr. Bojangles?
No, it's the
Yeah,
bar that was there.
Oh, okay.
my God.
Wahiki?
What is it?
The Wahiki? Wahaki, yes. Wahaki, can never say.
Yeah, that, like
They don't
Lois
say
and
things
Jerry,
enough, I
Lois
just-
and Jerry would go there.
Oh,
And, maybe Fritz Wolanek and I did too, I don't know, because
Well,
I
that's
was-
right, you went out with
Yeah, I
Fred
would
Wolanek
date him
originally.
with
Yeah.
Lois and Jerry and Harry and Joy and so forth.
Alfred Wolanek built my house. It's this big stone house on Ward Road down the way. He was a master mason, and a CB veteran, and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Bill knew him too, Fritz.
yeah, Fritz Wolanek.
We
I
called him
remember that
Fritzy
name.
Baby. We did, it was always Fritzy Baby. I don't know why we did, but we did. And then he
Okay.
worked at Wurlitzer too, and he took
Yeah.
me to the Buffalo Philharmonic. And he really liked classical music a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, he was a very intelligent guy, and he wrote a note for me and said, I will be self-employed by the time, and that's when he worked at Wurlitzer, and said, I will be self-employed. And he was shortly
Yeah.
thereafter, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We still have his business signs in the back, metal business
Yeah.
signs that thankfully weren't scrapped, and they say Wheatfield Construction Company, and with the North Tonawanda zip code. Yeah, and they were mounted somewhere, maybe on the boulevard, presumably, because we have no record of them being mounted at the house. They might have been on the boulevard somewhere, and it said Fred Wolonick, and his contact information and so forth. Will build to suit, or some the words to that effect. There, we have him hanging up in the back garage, where he built his office and where he had his equipment and everything.
His only problem, drinking,
Indeed.
yeah. Drinking.
It
Yeah.
sounds like there's a lot of bars around to choose from,
Yeah,
right?
there was, and
Yeah.
and you mentioned lastly the Creekside bar, which was literally wedged between the boulevard and Sawyer's Creek
What
on
did I find the
near
other
right
day?
next to Eric Road.
I found the receipt for the down payment that my brother paid for that. The Creekside,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, her
You did,
brother
you should
owned it.
donate that.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, that'd be nice. Oh sure, oh absolutely.
I said your brother owned it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
you should
absolutely,
donate
yeah.
that, the
Thank you,
receipt,
yeah.
if you can.
It's gotta be home.
Sure. I
I
heard a
used
number.
to do is, he was American Legion president or whatever they have in America.
The commander.
Commander,
yeah.
for 1 year or two, and I would do all his typing for him on
Yeah.
mimeograph sheets or something, like, oh my God.
So did you go to the Ted Rock Club? Was that,
I
or
don't
was it
think
like on
I
River
went,
Road?
I was too young, but Dorothy,
Was it on River Road?
yes.
Yes, it was
a-
immediately next to the Niagara Falls city line, and it was right in there. It was
way back.
You sat way back in there. There was a drive to it, and there was a sort of diagonal lot. I was researching into it because it's a fascinating little, kind of semi-secret nugget of Niagara County
Never heard
history.
of it.
Yeah, Ted Raw it was like Ted hyphen Raw, probably abbreviations for two people's names.
Yeah,
But
I think it was.
Yeah,
So
I have no idea.
when was
who-
it open and when did it close?
It was opened, according to the assessment records, it was opened by the early 30s and it closed because of a fire in 72 or 73.
Oh, really?
And that the ruins kind of stayed there for a couple more years, and then the whole thing was gradually demolished. Apparently, there was the little apartment that was located in one of the, I called them the rooks, because there were these, it was shaped like a castle.
Yeah, it
In a
was.
sense,
It
like a
was.
Hispanic sort of castle, and there was an attached garage apartment combination to it, and apparently the fire started in there, and it damaged the facility enough. It was so old anyways, and hadn't been kept up for a bit, but thanks to certain people online, they were able to forward me some photos of it in its prime, and one photo caught from behind after a couple of years or so after the fire of the overgrowth starting on the club, and eventually it was all razed. So I went over there